Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I am your host tonight and every Tuesday night for Zoom at 8. And I'm also a loan officer, senior director at Old Capital Lending. So if you're looking at a deal, I would love to have the opportunity to earn the right to be your provider of debt. And, you know, Old Capital has been doing business for 38 years in multifamily. We really are specialists in this. So if you've been working on a deal for 2 years, some of us, right? And you just can't get it, and you end up making a deal, you're in a PSA, you do not want to lose that deal. You don't want to come in. You remember, as a lender, we are your biggest partner. We don't want to leave you at the altar. We don't want to bring in less proceeds. So early on, we want to look at that deal. We're going to look for your T12, your rent roll, an OM, an offering memorandum, if it's available, and your underwriting, okay? It's not high level when you get to an LOI. So let's talk before the LOI. I'll tell you, I just got off the phone with a person that wants to pay a lot of money for their asset, and it's getting to be like 49%. And I said, well, maybe you need to lower the price. He says, it doesn't work that way. No, we don't want to overpay for these assets. That's why you need to double check with your lender, like me, how much we can provide for you. All right. Tonight, we've got some great live conversation here with our industry experts. It's going to be fantastic. We've got Cody Davis and Christian Osgood. These guys are young bucks, and I'm hoping that they will bring you some inspiration, some mindset, some way to look at things a little bit differently in this market and in the markets that they're looking at. And we're going to hear from them very shortly. I got to tell you, I met Cody. I saw him online. He was, I don't know, 20 years old, 19, and he did a flip. And I was like, I got to get to know that guy. I won't let the flip go. I could talk about it all the time. It's probably not a big deal. But you know what? I was impressed. Here's this young guy showing up, doing multifamily commercial houses and, you know, so forth. I got to get to know him. So I reached out to Cody 3 years ago, maybe. I think that's about how long I've known Cody. 2 years? I don't know. Been doing this for 4 years here at Zoom at 8, but this is his third time. And now he's brought his partner in, Christian Osgood, Cody Davis. These two guys, we're going to have a great night. So let's hear about Cody Davis. Is a local Washington investor. He started at the age of 19 as a real estate agent. Cody has built a real estate portfolio consisting of 130 rental apartments and a resort. The majority of Cody's projects consist of rehab intensive acquisitions in central Washington. And then we've got Christian Osgood, another rock star here. He's worked for CoStar. He worked for CoStar previously for 4 years. And before he finally realized that working in real estate and investing in real estate are completely unrelated goals. He purchased two duplexes in 2020 and 2021 and found himself with no liquidity to expand. And that is common. That is common. And so at that time, he then met up with Cody Davis and partnered on a seller finance 38 plex. And since then, they've been purchasing multifamily ever since, and this resort. We got to hear about the resort and seller financing. And as you know, we are lenders. I'm a lender and I'm looking for business. So I certainly will look forward to when Cody and Christian finance themselves out of seller finance. But in this environment today, we're trying to get as creative as possible. So I want to welcome Cody Davis and Christian Osgood to Zoom at 8. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for the invite.
I'm so glad you guys are here. Now listen, before we get started, if you guys would go up to the right-hand side of your computer and it says view, well, please put it on speaker view. Okay, I know you see me now, but we want to give all of our attention to our speaker, Cody and Christian. Is Christian here?
Yes, I am. Hello,
Oh,
Julie.
excellent. Look at
Good
that
to see you again.
background. You look so professional. Listen, I'm just so glad you guys are here. And that was a real quick overview. So I want to hear, let's give it 2 minutes, a breakdown of how you met, what you were doing at the time. I know you were working at CoStar, how you decided to work together, because so many people are looking for partners. And so how long did this process go? So why don't I have you, Christian, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I had 2020, I had left the CoStar group because I was an outside sales rep, and the government banned outside sales. So that wasn't going to work. So I went and started my own research data center. I actually built a 10-person call center within the company that Cody was brokering at. So we were working at the same company, different buildings, same city. So I knew of Cody, but didn't really know Cody all that well. The owner of that company actually had booked an event for Grant Cardone. He was going to go to the 10X Growth Conference in I guess that would have been the 2021 Growth Conference. And Cody and I were also going. He backed out, asked if we wanted to share a room. We did. So I spent 3 days with Cody at a business conference. We talked about all of the things that we had in common and what we wanted to do in business. And it turns out he was trying to retire his mom. I was trying to retire my wife from teaching. Again, COVID made everything weird. And so we had the same goal. It cost about the same. Cody had a little bit more equity in real estate than I did. I had a little bit more cash than Cody did, but we had a similar net worth, similar cost of goals. And we both wanted to get there through multifamily real estate investing. So that was the first thing where we really hit it off, is we had a similar target. And that's the first thing you look at with any partnership. It actually happened pretty quick. We got back from that growth conference, and I think we went under contract for our first building, which was a 38 unit. We did that, I think, within a month of coming back from that event.
So Cody, I mean, here you are, you get full-time, for 3 days with this guy you've never met, maybe saw him at the, as he's opening the door to the office. But what an amazing opportunity for you to be able to spend such quality time. What was it that you saw that Christian had that you're like, okay, that would be a great partner? What was it?
We just had fun. That was it. I mean, I have a picture. We
That's
had
so
a
simple.
we
You
had a
can share that
margarita or
picture
two,
if
and
you
I
want.
pushed him in a bush. Do
And
you
he
remember that,
allowed you
Christian?
to get pushed in a bush. So he's a keeper then.
We're still friends after that. But no, we had a fun time. The stories that never make it to the internet until Zoom at 8.
There you go. Now, listen, Cody, what gets you to be a broker, a real estate agent at 19? That's very young.
There was a guy on the internet. I was going to college, and I made a little post on Facebook and said that I wanted to save up by the time I was 21. This time I was 18. I wanted to buy a duplex by the time I turned 21. So that would have been in 2021, way back when. And so I made that post. This guy I never met, he owned a real estate brokerage, DM'd me, said you should drop out of college, get your real estate license, and stop doing all the side jobs that you're doing. You'll make a bunch of money. And 6 months into that, I made no money, but I did quit my other jobs and I dropped out of college. So that happened. But 3 months following that 6-month period, I ended up buying a 12-plex, and I realized that I bought it 0 money down. It was seller financed. 9 months after that, bought another one, 0 money down, seller financed. Shortly after that, bought a 6-plex, 0 money down, seller financed. And at that point in time, I realized that real estate agents are not the people who make the money. It's the people that own the real estate. And it's not just the people that manage the real estate. It's cool to have assets that you can have under management, but it's the people that actually own it and are entitled to the cash flows and the equities of the ventures. And when I realized that, I had met Christian at the time. We had gone on our little adventure in Florida, and we saw Cardone, and we got amped up, super stoked. And we came back and sat down. It's like, we want to get to 100 units in 2 years. What if we bought a 38 plex and we did it 0 money down? And Christian said, what would that look like? And I laid it out, showed him the deal. We bought it, 0 money down. And then within about 2 months, we bought another 6, and then we bought a 7. And then a couple months after that, we bought some more 0 money down. We bought 2 triplexes, and then we bought a 10, some more properties. Then we bought the resort, the Robin Hood Village Resort, 0 money down, seller finance on the Hood Canal. And now we're here.
Amazing. I mean, just stunningly amazing. Okay. I just want to give you a high five, because all of that in 2 years. Now, yes, we know that the properties were on fire, right? Business was amazing, but you just continually are rocking it. So I want to know, want you to walk through the steps and the process that you take to find these deals, because they're not easy. And are they all in Washington? How do you meet these owners? Conversations that you're having with these owners, the process of getting them to sell it to you. Because let's face it, there are a lot of people looking for seller finance, or they're looking for somebody to just give them they take their phone calls. So I'm curious what that looks like. If you could walk us through that, Christian, or either one of you guys, love to hear it.
I'll start with the first part, and then Cody, if you want to talk about the magic map that we found, I'll pass it to you. But the step one is you need to identify what you want to do. And when I talk to people, a lot of people have really ambiguous goals, like I want to retire, or I want to drive a nicer car, have a bigger house, or what have you. The first thing is you get a clarity, like specific goal that you want to achieve and the timeline you want to do it. Like for me, I used to want to retire my wife somewhere in the next 10 years. 2020 hit and it became hey, I want to retire my wife from teaching kindergarten in the next year. There's some urgency here. I need to replace her income. So I knew exactly financially what I was trying to hit with a clear target, and knowing that I wanted to do it in real estate, that made it a lot easier. So that's step one, clarify your goal and put a numerical value to it. Step two is you find the people in your market who've done exactly what you want to do, which seems really basic, but seller financing is going to be a relationship game. People will finance you mostly because they trust you, believe in your business plan, and want to see you move forward. That is the biggest piece of seller financing that we have found to be true. Every market in the US, I have seen people who own a lot of real estate who have done what I want to do and retired their spouses through real estate. So that is a good starting point. Set your goal, find the people who've done your goal. Cody, how did we find those people?
Well, I found one thing to be consistently true. Every property that I've ever bought was on Google Maps. And so what I realized is that I need to figure out, like Christian mentioned, you need to figure out what you want to buy. And once you figure out who owns it, which we do through Google Maps, call them up, grab a coffee, learn how they bought said assets, and then repeat the steps. There's nobody more qualified than the folks who have done what you want to do to teach you how to play the game. And so I found that to be consistently true, regardless of size. I found owners that own 900 units in LA with virtually no debt. I found people who own thousands of apartments with no debt, and they're not even apartment people. It's like that one guy owns everything in one LLC, thousands and thousands of apartments. There's not a dollar of debt, and he's a land guy. Christian knows exactly who I'm talking about. So there's a lot of people out there that are just massive, that own billions of dollars of real estate in cash as individuals, without partners, without mortgages, and they've just been playing the game for a while. And that some of these people started with absolutely no money, and they are the most qualified people to teach you how to do it. So find the big roofs on Google Maps, because the bigger the roof, the more likely it is to be a multifamily building worth buying, opposed to a commercial building or a single family house. Figure out who owns it on the tax assessor, call them up, grab coffee with them, learn how they got into the position that they're in, and then realize that you can play this on any level. And the beautiful part about the seller finance piece is everyone that's putting 40% down to buy their deal, I could put 10% or 5%. And when you realize you can do that on your 30, 40, $50 million deals as well, even if you're syndicating, which we don't do, if you put 10% down and everyone else is putting 40, your returns are 400% that of everyone else. Makes it much easier to multiply investor returns, and you get non-recourse debt with basically owner-occupied home loan financing. But that is
Interesting.
how we find the deals.
Okay, so let's talk about how you call these guys up. Now, are you getting responses every time? What's the, you call 100 phone calls. How many people are answering those calls?
I've found that a ratio that works for me is if I make one call a day during the week to owners. So I'm making 5 calls. At least 2 of them are going to pick up the phone, and at least one of them will book a coffee meeting. Just consistently. And that's, I found that to be true for several other people in several different markets. That seems to be kind of the magic number. So you find 5 specific people and you call them with a specific reason. One of them will probably get coffee. You do that every single week. You get coffee once every other Saturday, or every Saturday or Sunday. You're going to meet 52 owners a year. Say you take 2 weeks off. So we'll say you meet 50 owners a year. You've communicated in 30 seconds or less. This is what I'm trying to do. Tell me how you built this. And the rest of your questions are just around how they built their portfolio and their business. You don't have to worry about finding deals. If you meet 50 owners in your market and they know who you are and they care about what you're doing and you've showed an interest in them, you will find deals, and you're going to learn a heck of a lot about your market, who the players are, who the best managers, lenders, lawyers, the whole 9 yards. You will learn everything you need to know to play this game and scale by meeting those 50 people over coffee. And it's 1 call per day that has consistently worked for me for years.
Amazing. So is Cody run the same method with you as you do?
That was the method I was doing.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
I was doing that before I knew Christian existed.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you guys are both of you doing, is that your, your skill set then? Like, do you both do it? Does somebody underwrite? What are your jobs? Let's call it jobs in the partnership.
I've consistently made the most mess, and Christian's cleaned it up. But
we have also made several $1 million cleaning up the messes that Cody makes. So there's that is the main jobs. Both can do what the other one can do, but Cody is a freak of nature, best mathematician I've ever met. He can do basically anything in his head pretty much instantly. While I can do math really well, Cody does a lot of our underwriting because he's really, really, really fast at it. Cody will oversee some accounting. I own the property management company, but we have done everything where we both did all roles. Cody and I can swap each other out in any position. That's how we built the business, but we kind of lean to where we're the strongest. So Cody is super direct, which means when we're getting into negotiations or setting up an original deal, Cody's actually fantastic. When you're talking about long-term vendor relationships, I'm more likable just because I'm not as direct. So I come off as less cold. And we've talked about this a bunch on our stuff. So I maintain a lot of those long-term things. Both of us can do it, but we try to play to our strengths. If it's math or a straight up, like, these are the numbers that work, we're going to usually have Cody present, and vice versa.
And that's legit, because I called up an owner, or not an owner, owners love me. I called up a broker and I was like, bringing up that we were looking to buy something. And he's like, well, I got a deal. I can't tell you details. It's like, you sure you can't tell us details? And he's like, I can't disclose anything yet. Got to keep it under wraps. Christian calls him like 10 minutes later, and he spills the beans on all the details. So he likes Christian more. So good cop, bad cop. Christian's always the good cop because he's less direct.
Oh, it's good. At least you found it, right? And so you guys complement each other. I love it. So you're getting these folks. You're only looking in Washington, or are you looking at other places?
We've looked at a state, found a lot of seller financeable deals in Florida. There's a lot of them over there. There's a lot of these deals throughout Texas. Christian bought into a couple of them because he could for like $500. So he's like, I want to buy a deal. So he bought 18 units for like $500. And then we've got some friends who are starting to buy up all over the place, like Oklahoma and Tennessee, and we're just not super interested. I mean, we're looking at 100. I guess we're looking at a 108 unit deal, seller financed over in Clarksville, Tennessee. But I mean, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it is what it is.
So how long is the seller finance? How is it a 5-year? Is it a 10-year note? How do you guys manage that? Do
The
you have a
Clarksville,
certain, well, in any of these deals, do you have a certain request of these sellers that you want 10-year financing? You're going to be getting them out in 5 years? How does that work?
it varies. We bought a 10-plex and it was 15 years of interest only at a really low rate. This one in Clarksville, if we end up moving forward, it's 20 years interest only at like 3.5%, and it's 12% down. So it's just good financing. There are some deals where it's 30 years. Like my first deal was a 30-year fully amortized mortgage, no balloon, and that was on a 12-plex. And then one of our smallest properties is a 3-year balloon. But we signed up for a 3-year because our cash flow alone could pay it off in a fraction of the time. So it's just we put into perspective of if it's a really big deal, we need a lot more time, because one of our rules is we have to be able to cash flow through our total mortgage before it is due. And if we can't, we won't sign for it.
Amazing. You got that all figured out. So are you finding rents going up? Are you finding them to be flat? What are you finding now in these deals? And does it really matter for your business plan?
So
We buy. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Cody. The main part of our business plan, the core simplicity of how we buy is that we ask 2 questions: how do you buy it, and how do you never lose it? If you buy and hold forever, you tend to make the most money. We found that consistently with everyone who we've ever met who has made it in real estate. They pay down their stuff over time. They own a lot of stuff. They know how to hold it, and they made their wealth through a long period of holding assets as they've gone up in value and debt's been devalued. So while playing this game, that is the main thing that we are always going to be looking for, and that's the main thing that dictates what we buy and when we buy it. So that is consistent everywhere, every time, every deal.
Are you finding that people know who you are when you're calling them up? Is your name getting around? How are you marketing yourself out to some of these folks?
In the beginning, nobody knew who we were. It was just 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old Cody that had no money, no credit, no backing, calling these people that had tens of millions of dollars. And now that those people have scaled to hundreds of millions in assets that they just own themselves.
So I want to back up. I want you to stop right there. 19, 20 years old. How do people take you serious? What were some of the challenges in that? Did they want to help you, or did they were like, this kid doesn't know? What was, did you get doors closed or opened on that?
Both. I have a feeling that one reason I was taken seriously is because when I spoke, I'm a very introverted person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting out of that, but was very introverted as a kid, all the way through dropping out of college, just afraid to talk to people. And I overcame that through talking with Starbucks baristas, but that's a different conversation. My ability to effectively communicate was something that needed practicing. And so every day that I'd make these calls, I'd practice. So as far as overcoming the hurdles, as I got better at being concise and being confident in the few things that I was saying, people took me seriously.
I love that.
Didn't add extra words, tried to get rid of filler words like or get rid of the pauses. Those don't inspire confidence in anybody. And as a result, just take a few words out and people take you seriously. It was wild.
Really wild, really wild. So nobody has known you. You're starting to get a lot of people are starting to see and know who Cody is. I mean, I was over in San Francisco this weekend and I go, yeah, I got some young guys coming on this weekend. They said, oh, Cody. I love that now you've got a name and Christians along with you to help with some of the softening. I love that. What are some of your challenges that you're seeing in today's market?
Well, there's 3 resource pools. I'll let Christian jump into those because that is his thing. We're both board game guys. We like board games and we like looking at resource management games. And Christian will jump into this, but the current market conditions make it very difficult to rip out liquidity for those who have equity and cash flow.
Yeah. So I've found that to be rich in real estate, you have to have equity in real estate, because that's what's going to go up over time. You need to have cash flow so you can service the real estate and meet your obligations. And you have to have liquidity because there's capital events that come up and and there's balloons that come up. Like having liquidity means a lot, and you have to have all 3. In our current market conditions, it's really hard to get liquidity because buying, especially if you're using seller financing, is just coming up with an agreement between 2 parties. You can buy based on cash flow for equity growth all day long. So if we're only closing deals that cash flow day one and we raise rents over time, because we usually buy under market rent, cash flow, really easy to build in the current market. At least I've found that to be true. Equity growth takes care of itself over time, and you have equity in your deals, which you can usually sell or refinance or reposition for capital. When interest rates triple, pulling the capital back out of the darn property is a heck of a lot harder. Even if you did a fantastic job, you repaired the buildings, you got new siding, new roofs, new floors, new appliances, your tenants are happy, your occupancy is great, but the cost of debt doubled. Liquidity is the hard one in today's economy. So that's the one that we've always had the most struggle, where we can buy and we've increased cash flow to what I feel in 2 years is a ridiculous amount. However, lump sums of liquidity are hard to come by, and we do a lot of capital expenditure, like just capital intensive projects. So I'd say struggles in managing the resource pools, we're economically in a place where you have to plan very specifically to maintain the liquidity. And having started together 2 years ago, we've basically only had interest rates increase every single month that we've been partnered.
Yeah, so that is a challenge across the nation, regardless of what kind of capital you have on the property. And yeah, I would tell you that liquidity is a challenge unless you've got a bridge, quote, let's say a fixed bridge is right now, it could be your best solution on that. But yeah, so automation. Are you doing any automation when you're trying to contact these investors, these owners?
No.
Is that right?
There's no reason to. Putting the relationship first, there's no reason to put some sort of automation or machine in between. We don't add steps. Adding steps is a good way to fail. And when it comes to actually getting what you want, everybody else has it. The real estate you want, the money you want, the connections and the vendors, other people have it. That is just a fact. And I'm not going to let some machine or AI try and coordinate that, because I have to be on my A game when I go meet with these people. I have to know exactly what conversations have been had, and I don't want to study up on a text thread that someone else did for me, or listen into phone calls to see how they went. That's just not a great way to run the relationship-based business model.
We had Keely Hubbard, and she was here a 3 weeks ago, and she talked about these conversations. It's about the conversation. It's about the making a connection. And you're really right on. There are so many tools. So many people have, okay, this is how I'm going to capital raise. Tell me about capital raising for your deals. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that something that you need to reach out? Do you still have your same investors? Kind of walk us through that.
It comes last. I'll let Christian talk about the the actual capital stack with the investors, but our order of operations never changes. It's deal, then debt, then equity. If you find something you want to buy, it's in your best interest to buy it. The trick is it's easy to buy real estate. It's hard to never lose it. People do the wrong debt products and then they end up losing their stuff. So when it comes to raising money, we structure the debt where it's just a phenomenal opportunity. And then you just can't match the returns that we can with our seller finance deals, because the debt is so little down and so little on the interest rate, and it's non-recourse. They can't put their money anywhere else. So when the investors do reach out, or we reach out to some of our original investors, it's almost always an automatic yes.
Christian, did you want to highlight anything on that capital stack?
Well, the main thing with the capital stack is, I mean, you can raise debt, you can raise equity. When we're meeting the partners, though, I'll add some color to the partners thing. It's the same methodology as the owners that you're meeting. Like when you meet with people who have real estate, they tend to be people who have money. Just traditionally, if you've played the game a long time, the people I'm reaching out have real estate. They also have capital. It's not super uncommon that people, like, because not every meeting results in a deal, and that's fine, because we're not asking for deals. We're talking to owners, not sellers. And that's a huge distinction that Cody and I, there's no such thing as a seller until we're under contract for a deal. They're all just owners of real estate. A lot of them, it's pretty common. People reach out like, hey, I don't have the energy that you and Cody do because I'm 31, Cody's 23. We're young in our career. We're super excited. They're like, we love what you're doing. You guys have all the drive that we had 25 years ago. Can I put some capital with you guys and you guys keep running and doing what you're doing? Because they just see a younger version of themselves in us. But it's just a function of doing what we're doing. We do two things that work really well in meeting investors and raising capital. One, we're always meeting people in our markets who own real estate. So we're just inherently well connected. And then two, we talk about all of our adventures online. YouTube is not like a magic resource for us, but that is the one thing. We share the story so actively with people that we do have people at this point in our career who will reach out just because they've seen us on YouTube, they've seen us on someone's podcast, they've seen us on Zoom at 8, and they have a question about, hey, like, how are you guys doing this? Is there a way I can invest with you? We're very selective with the capital stack because I hate variables, and people are the most variable aspect of real estate. But when we get a great relationship with someone who we really connect with and goals align, kind of like Cody and I did in Florida, when we see that with another investor, that's someone who will look at building a portfolio with. And we usually have the same very few people will work on specific portfolios just with those individuals.
I love this. You guys are just so fantastic. So tell me about your education program. Is that right? Are you guys starting to educate people? Is that true or no?
We have educated a person or two.
Okay.
But,
So you're not
yeah.
you're not out on the guru scene.
I don't really want to be a guru because I don't like any of the gurus that are currently out there. They're a bunch of goobers. But
you're awesome.
yeah, we've helped some people. The main point of what we share online and share we've got a consulting company, multifamilystrategy.com, but everything comes down to simplicity. To the extent that you can simplify your universe, it becomes repeatable. If it's not repeatable, it's not worth anything. So we've broken down what we do into principles. We're principle based. Christian read a book called Principles, and I think that left more than a lasting impact on him. And when we started building out that section of our business, we found there's about 30 of them that we have that are our guiding light of where to go. And they act also as a lighthouse of where not to go. Because if you're in a boat and you go to a lighthouse, turns out you hit the rocks. So we found some that show us what to do, some that show us what not to do. And we tried to boil down everything that we do into the simplest form. Find a piece of real estate you want to buy, line up the debt first, line up the equity after, get the real estate to buy the real estate so that the cash flows can buy out all the partners before your mortgages are due. And then at the end of the day, you wake up tomorrow with a lot more real estate than you had today.
That's a winning day.
yeah, it's not a bad day.
So if somebody wanted to invest in a deal, I'm assuming you take new investors, at least the ones that don't drive you nuts, right, Christian?
Yes.
If somebody were to say, hey, I'd be interested in, coming along with you on this journey, what would you say is your average if you do a cash on cash return? Do you do, what are your IRRs?
We don't care about IRR. That's not a
Okay.
metric that I ever advertise. I will say the first deal we ever did, someone put in 100 grand and they walked away with 6 months later. And I don't know what the IRR on that is, but it's better than 7%. I know that for a fact.
I would
And
agree with
so,
you on that. Yeah.
doesn't suck. But the whole thing that we do when we look at partnering with people, we fix our variables until they're no longer variables. We do a deal with someone, the first one, whether they put $1 million in with us, and we've done a deal where someone put in $1 million. And then we've done deals where someone put in, I think the lowest amount was like 50 grand, or no, 90,000 in Pheasant.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the smallest amount we ever did. The minimum that they were going to get was a 2-for-1 in 5 years, plus some cash flow and some cost seg, and they were happy. But it was a fixed buyout. And the reason we do that is we should, as the operator, have the right to buy them out until we know that they're not going to be an issue. And after that, we go and buy deals where we can just ride it with people forever. And we're looking at doing that with some folks right now.
Mhm.
And as far as actual returns go, it's hard to quantify a return when you don't have any money in a deal. But like an example deal of theoretically the worst property we ever bought, it sat on the market for 13 years. And we
Wow.
bought it for $2 million, 300 grand down. And today on appraisal, it's worth about $4.1 million less than 2 years later, because Christian and I haven't been partnered for 2 years. So we turned 300,000 into $2.4 million in like 18 months. And
That sounds
so
like a
whatever,
success story.
and that was a deal that sat on the MLS for 13 years straight. It got listed when I was 8. We bought it for the same list price when I was 21. So that theoretically should have been the worst deal we ever bought. And we
Wow.
turned 3 into 2.4. So whatever the IRR is on that, that's also better than 7%.
There you
But
go.
you can just figure it out and math it out. Like we just make sure the deal is so good that nobody cares about the return. Because once you have all your money out,
Yeah.
ROI doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And different deals will have a different blend of, like, if it's really cash flow heavy day one, that's one thing I'll look at. Like, I'll look at cash on cash return. It's not the most important metric to me of all time, because really I'm looking at debt service coverage ratio. I want to see, can we hold this property forever with margin? That's DSCR is the one that matters. What the cash on cash return day one will tell me is, are we raising debt, equity? Are we giving more cash flow? Or are we doing a higher buyout in the future? And so we just try to weigh each of the deals to where they make sense. I found that most people, if I'm doing, let's say I'm not sharing any of the cash flow at all, and we've done that on a deal, there's no cash flow, but you do have a buyout, or they get the rest of the LLC. And it's 5 years, they double their money. And I've found that if you do some iteration of every 5 years, you double your money. If it's all an equity buyout, there's a lot of people who are happy to double their money every 5 years. That makes total sense. If we're really heavy on cash flow in today's market, since, if you're borrowing from a HELOC, you're paying like 9.5%. People really want to see, if there's no equity buyout or no multiple on equity, they're going to want to see 12+% in cash flow.
Sure.
Is just realistically what people are seeing. So depending on the deal and how much day one cash flow there is, will skew more towards the debt side or more towards the equity side. It depends on the individual transaction. Those are like my basic metrics, depending on every deal, where I'm like, okay, well, if we're heavier on the equity, the multiple is going to be somewhere in the ballpark of doubling their money in 5 years, and vice versa for the debt.
Fantastic. So what's on the horizon for you guys? 2 years together.
Theoretically, yeah, we should be under contract on another deal today, seller financed.
Yes,
Chris-
I have been
Christian-
texted that we are under contract, but I have not seen the final signed contract. So in theory, we're under contract for another 22 units.
That's fantastic. So are you
yeah.
guys looking for some capital?
That one's lined up.
Yep.
Okay.
That one's
So-
pre-raised.
So if somebody wants to go on to your next one, how do they do that? What you want them to call you? Do you want them? How should they connect with you?
It would start with a coffee meeting. So if they want to call us or they want to do a email chat, we could do that. I just met up with a guy and today for coffee, actually. There's a really good coffee place here in Renton called Redondo. And if anybody likes coffee and waffles or crepes, that's the place to go. But
So heading out to coffee with Cody. Whoa, I like
Cody
that.
and
That sounds
Christian,
good.
C squared.
C triple. That's awesome. Now listen,
Yeah.
I want to hear from each of you real quick. Words of wisdom. What do you say to somebody who's young? What do you say from somebody that's old? Hey, old is 100. We're all young at heart. What are your words of wisdom for someone trying to do what you're doing?
You want to go first, Christian, or you want me to?
Sure, I can go first. I'm going to go back to my original statement. I'm stuck on this today, but it clarify and quantify your goal. I've talked even on our on the Bigger Pockets podcast. We were just filming with them down in LA. I think that dropped last week. But on that podcast, one of the questions they edited out because they didn't have a good answer for it. But one of the hosts, we asked what their goal is, and they're like, I don't really know. No one seems to have clearly defined goals. If you start there, you can reverse engineer the rest of the strategy. But like, really spend the time, sit down. If you're married, meet with your spouse and figure out like, what is it that we are trying to do? How long is it going to take? And what is it going to cost? And let's engineer something to that goal instead of just marching towards, I want to leave my job one day. I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, when do you want to leave it? What does it cost to replace your income? Do you want more income on top of that? Like, what does it look like to leave your job? Ask those questions. That's my advice for no matter what age you are. Like, start there and engineer everything else from that.
Love it. Great. Cody, what do you got?
If you're a fisherman, don't go to the Dead Sea. On Christian's point, when you figure out what you want, you need to make sure that you are in the right location to get it. And anybody who doesn't know the Dead Sea, it has a name for a reason. Nothing can live in it. If you're looking for apartment deals, the quickest way to buy them in its simplest form is to find out who owns them and then become their friend to the point where they will give it to you. And that's repeatable. Figure out who has what you want after you've determined what you want. Don't add steps. Meet with them, build the relationship, figure out what their original goals were. Because everybody has the goal of, well, I want to get to 100 units or 1,000 units, but that's not a goal. The goal that's driving that, nobody grows up as a kid and says, I want to own 1,000 units. I want to have the race car. I want to have the nice house. I want to have the spouse. I want to take care of my family. Those are the big ones that I see repeatable. Figure out who's done that. How did they do it? Real estate's typically the vehicle. Make sure that you're meeting with the people who have actually achieved it at the level that you want to. You can find them through Google Maps. Everybody's phone number's on Google. And once you meet up with them, it's one thing to get to the table. It's another thing to not get kicked out. So regardless of whether you're just getting started, this is what I told Caleb when you introduced him to us when he was 18. Now he's got 28 apartments at 20 years old. Figure out who owns what you want to own and call those people. And as a result, he convinced some people to give him their stuff, seller financed. It's so simple. People don't think it works, but you just meet with enough of the players who own what you want to own. Eventually, they'll give it to you. Very
wise for a 23-year-old. All right. Christian, did you retire your wife?
Yes.
Cody, did you retire your mom? Okay, so go ahead, Christian.
All right. Yes, I did. So she quit teaching last year. Cody and I set a goal. The original goal is to do it in 2 years. We did it in 11 months, which was awesome. Then she decided, because the goal is to get her freedom to do what she wants to do. And so she took 2 months off, and then she decided like, hey, I can help you coordinate some of these contractors because you and Cody are a mess because you guys fly all over the place talking to people and your properties still need love. She now is like super full time in our company and she loves it. She has grown. I run the property management company. She runs all of the contractors, manages all the bills, and helps a ton with the resort that Cody and I own, with the staff and helping me hire and unfortunately fire a few people as we pick up a new resort. Sometimes that happens with a new business.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's a
she jumped
whole
right into our
nother-
businesses and loves it. So yeah,
Awesome.
retired her from teaching and built a new job for her. We get to work together from home every single day, which is awesome.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Cody, is your mom retired?
I'm waiting for my CPA to file my dang taxes so I can buy a house for her.
Oh, that's so
We
fantastic.
are our CPA is only 8 months behind.
Oh, believe me, I'm with you. It's unfortunate. All right. Couple questions in the house here. Remember, this is a live conversation, everybody. You get to ask some questions here. That's why you show up. You get the experts in the room. You don't have to fly anywhere. Hey, Candace, you're always good for a question. What do you got?
So, first of all, apologies for being late, but man, I saw you guys, maybe it was a year ago they were on.
Yeah.
Phenomenal still, just still phenomenal. So with the size of your business and hearing about your wife coming on and helping you manage, I have a brick and mortar business that in the past couple of years, I mean, I've had this business for 31 years. And the past like 2.5 years, I implemented profit first, and holy cow, what a difference. And I'm just curious, have you implemented something like that? I know that there's a person, and I apologize for not remembering their name, that I worked with Mike McAllowitz and did a profit first for real estate. I'm just wondering if you do that type of accounting method with what you're doing, what your thoughts were on that.
Well, profit first as a methodology. I haven't looked up the specifics of it, but if it follows its name, that is one of Cody and my 30 principles. Is we always start every business with profitability. So everything is done and expanded out of what we make. So if it follows that general logic, we find the income first, expand out of that, and we run most of the companies outside of obviously real estate acquisitions. We run them all debt free because we build the income streams first and reverse engineer everything to the newly found income. So I expand out of that methodology. So if that tracks with what profit first is, then yes, the main systems that we've implemented, I'm trying to think through it because we're still a fairly small company. I manage about 200 units right now, and Cody and I own a majority of them. So our main things that we've done systematically is just make sure that, first of all, we built the team that we want with the personalities we want. So we got everyone on the bus. And then the last 2 years, we have spent organizationally a majority of our time building out our org charts and figuring out which players and which personalities after a year or two of operations fit each role. So we've done a lot of shifting, but organizationally, the main thing that we have done is got the right people on the bus, and then I'd say 90% done with getting the right people in the right seats. And then after stabilization, we can really get into the business optimization. We're going to adopt more principles and more leadership and expand management.
And as far as profit first, where I've heard it most is a little different than that, Christian. Like
Perfect.
just starting with profitability, but it's where you pay yourself and then you expense everything through the biz. We don't do that. Our business cycle is focused on you build what you want first, then you stabilize it to consistency, you optimize it to highest and best use, and then you pay it off. And after you pay it off, if you've optimized it first, it doesn't take super long. You can debt hammer the portfolio and then you can pay yourself everything. So out of the whole portfolio, we only profit to ourselves about $1,000 a month out of the real estate. We've got some businesses that we pay ourselves a little bit from, but it's a base salary. Every last dime is pushed back into the portfolio to build the resource pools we talked about earlier. Build a little bit of liquidity in the biz, but we're really trying to bolster the balance sheet rather than profit on a personal level. We just live on the bare minimum, and everything else goes back into the real estate because the bigger we can grow the balance sheet, the easier it is to play with later.
I watched a YouTube video, and Mr. Beast is the largest YouTuber of all
Yes.
time. And his methodology is, okay, whatever I make, I just spend on the next video. Granted, I think he should pay himself a little bit more than that, but the principle of until I build the thing I'm trying to build, I'm going to continue to reinvest absolutely everything into it. That has been the strategy that Cody and I adopted for almost every business.
I love it.
Immediately, it's make as much as possible and try to pay yourself as little as possible until you can
Mhm.
pay yourself all of it, which we're getting to turn that dial on a little bit.
Okay, somebody is
Yeah, well,
on. There we go. Matt, ask the question.
You guys are my heroes. This is a great story. I love hearing it. So thanks for telling it. My one question is I would like to hear a little bit more about your resort. And I have a little bit of personal curiosity because I'm building a hotel overseas. So.
All right, now listen, I know you're super excited and I'm excited about that, but we also want to get to our networking. So give it 2 minutes because we do want to hear about it.
All right. The resort's the Robin Hood Village Resort. It's in Union, Washington. It's on the water, so we have waterfront on Washington's Hood Canal, which is the only fjord on the West Coast for those who are interested. Right on the foothills of the Olympic Mountains. So like location, you're in the forest. It's 20 individual cabins. Every cabin except for 2 have their own hot tub. Just like the beautiful 12.5 acre campus. So I guess you can almost, it's somewhere between like hotel or like a resort retreat and glamping. They're really, really, really nice cabins. A lot of them are historic. So you have like these old stone chimneys and it's awesome. That project we did seller finance. It was $1 million down. We were told it was going to be 0. And then we got there and they wanted $1 million down. So we figured that out. But that actual resort has been a huge learning lesson for us. It takes 9 employees to run 20 cabins to get all the turns done, laundry done. And then we run all summer. It's a wedding venue. So we're pretty much stacked with concerts and weddings all summer. We opened our first concert this year with Sugarland, actually, of all things, came out to our resort in a town of population of 680 people. That was kind of fun. So yeah, that's that project. It's our coolest asset. It's also by far most time intensive.
Matt, do you have any specific questions around that?
I'm just curious what your occupancy is.
Occupancy, because it's like nothing in the winter, if you average it through the whole year, we picked it up under 50% occupancy. We got it to about 65 through the year, but that's because it does all of its business in the summer. Summer, we stay like 85% occupied constantly.
Excellent.
We're booked out for the summer. Every weekend's booked out a year prior.
Fantastic.
Wow.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
Tia, one last question.
One last question. I'm reluctant to ask this because I came in a little late. There's nothing more annoying than somebody coming in late and asking a question that's already been answered. So I'm going to ask it anyway. In terms of, I consider myself a creative finance expert, right? So I have a wholesaling business and I'm always looking for that person who's more of an integrator. When your partnership formed or when you were looking for partnerships, are you basing a lot of your understanding around what makes a great partnership around, let's say, rocket fuel or that kind of dynamic, that book? So is it like visionary versus integrator?
We're both visionaries. He's
Both.
more so an integrator than I am, but his
Okay.
wife is the true integrator.
Got it.
I mean, that's important, but as far as like just getting stuff done, you get done what needs to get done. And if everybody has a similar goal that takes the same amount of resources, stuff happens. If everybody's driven towards the same thing, it doesn't matter whether one person's a visionary, both people are a visionary. It's cool to quantify that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like quantifying your businesses. I'm going to have this amount saved for taxes, and then I'm going to have this amount saved for repairs. But when push comes to shove, all the money goes to the huge capital expenditure that you didn't think about, and then you play catch up later. That's how most businesses are built. And but Christian would be more so the integrator than myself.
Yeah, I
All
would
right.
say that's true. Cody creates we said this right at the beginning of the call, was the perfect illustration for this. Cody is the one who causes a lot of our problems. He's like, we got to take on this project and it's going to, all these things are going to be problems, but it's okay because we're going to figure it out. And then I do a lot of the figuring out.
Yeah.
but that I have found that to be true. There's usually one partner, even when you're both inherently visionaries, one is going to gravitate towards the integrator side and one will be the visionary side. Cody will push harder and I will do more of the like, hey, we got to clean this up or create systems or create efficiencies. And yeah, that's what's evolved in our partnership over the last.
Okay, great. Because that generally is what makes a great partnership, is that balance. So yeah. Okay,
All right, last question. Christian, what is the name of your property management company? Is that something that you are just managing your assets, or do you do third party?
I do third party. I'm based in Grant County, Washington. I can manage other places in Central, but it's mostly Grant County, Washington. It's called Kensho PM, which we recently rebranded to that. So if you see signs all over Moses Lake, I literally just ordered all my signs for that. But yeah, that's Kensho.
Awesome. Oh, there
Property
you go.
Management. That's the company.
We need to get you a Zoom at 8 shirt. So I got to figure out when that you guys are. I'm going to see you.
Oh, watch out! Watch out! I only have like 5 t-shirts, so that will end up in my
that'll be
rotation.
great. That'll be great. Now listen, you guys, I love it. You guys are fantastic. I'm so thrilled. This is your 3rd visit to Zoom at 8, and I'm excited to see what you guys get done this year. So many changes in your lives, maybe babies, maybe marriage, maybe so many different things, right? Your mom. So I want to thank you really from the bottom of my heart. I love watching you guys. You have such a true spirit and desire to help others. And that is so wonderful. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. And I look forward to having you on next year.